I didn't know you were actually handicapped.
Poor deaf girl rejected at a blind date. But when a single dad at the next table witnessed her humiliation, his hands moved in a language that would change 3 lives forever. She sat alone, checking her phone for the 5th time in 20 minutes, her elegant red dress now feeling like armor that couldn't protect her from what was coming. The rain hammered against the windows of the Bluebird Café, but nothing could drown out the sound of her heart breaking when the man across from her spoke the words that shattered her world. "I didn't know you were actually handicapped." In that moment, as tears threatened to fall, she never expected a stranger's hands to speak the words her heart desperately needed to hear. "You deserve better." Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Wait, are you deaf? The words sliced through the ambient noise of the Bluebird Café like a blade. Brandon's face contorted with something worse than surprise. It was disgust, pure and undisguised. Serene's fingers tightened around her water glass, her knuckles whitening as she fought to maintain composure. She had been waiting for 45 minutes. 45 minutes of hope slowly curdling into humiliation as other diners cast sympathetic glances her way. And now, this.
"I have moderate to severe hearing loss," she responded, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I wear hearing aids. I mentioned this in my profile." "You said you had hearing difficulties," Brandon interrupted, his fingers making mocking air quotes. "I thought you meant like, sometimes you need things repeated. I didn't know you were actually—" He paused, his eyes scanning her face, stopping at her ears where her discreet hearing aids caught the light. The word that came next landed like a physical blow. "Handicapped." At the corner booth, just 3 feet away, Wesley Thorne's jaw clenched so hard he could feel his teeth ache. His 6-year-old daughter Chloe had stopped coloring entirely, her small hands frozen mid-motion as she watched the scene unfold. "Daddy," Chloe signed, her movement small and worried. "Why is that man being mean to the pretty lady?" Wesley's hands trembled as he signed back. "Some people don't understand, sweetheart. Some people are just—" He paused, searching for words gentle enough for his daughter. "Unkind." But Brandon wasn't finished. He was already pulling out his phone, scrolling through it as if Serene wasn't even there, as if her pain was insignificant as background noise. "Look, this isn't what I signed up for," he said, not even bothering to lower his voice. Several nearby diners turned to stare. "I can't deal with this. Do you know how exhausting it would be, having to repeat everything, making sure you can hear in restaurants? My friends would never let me hear the end of it, dating someone who can't even hear properly."
Serene's spine straightened, and for a moment, Wesley saw something magnificent in her posture, dignity radiating from every inch of her being despite the tears threatening to spill. "I'm a pediatric nurse," she said quietly. "I graduated from university with honors. I speak 3 languages. My hearing loss doesn't define my worth as a person." Brandon stood up, his chair scraping against the floor with an ugly sound. "No offense, but I have standards. This is why people should be honest in their profiles. Wasting my Friday night because you couldn't be upfront about being disabled." The word disabled hung in the air like poison. Wesley felt his body moving before his mind caught up, rising from his seat with a fluid motion that made Chloe gasp softly. But he wasn't walking toward Brandon. No, that would have been expected. Instead, he positioned himself directly in front of Serene's table, his back to the cruel man who was already heading for the door. Wesley's hands began to move. The movements were deliberate, graceful, each sign flowing into the next, like a dance he'd performed 1,000 times for his daughter. His fingers shaped words in the air, his face expressing what his voice didn't need to say. "You deserve so much better than someone who can't see your worth." Serene's breath caught. Her eyes, which had been brimming with unshed tears, widened in absolute shock. This stranger, this man she'd never seen before, was signing to her. Not just signing. He was speaking her language, the silent language that Brandon had just mocked, the language that lived in the spaces between sounds. Behind Wesley, Brandon had paused at the door, watching with confusion and growing irritation. You know that sign language stuff? Figures, birds of a feather, right? You two deserve each other. The door slammed behind him, leaving only the echo of his ignorance and the soft jazz music playing through the cafe's speakers.
Wesley turned back to Serene, and for a moment they just looked at each other. She saw kindness in his eyes, something genuine and unguarded. He saw strength in hers, despite the pain Brandon had tried to inflict. "May I?" Wesley gestured to the empty chair across from her. Serene nodded, still too stunned to speak. As Wesley sat down, a small figure appeared beside him, Chloe, clutching her coloring book, her hearing aids glinting under the warm cafe lights. "I'm sorry you had to experience that," Wesley said aloud while simultaneously signing. "Some people show you who they are quickly. He did you a favor by leaving." Serene's eyes moved to Chloe, watching how the little girl's gaze tracked their hands with the intensity of someone who understood this silent conversation. "Is she—" Serene began, her voice soft with wonder. "This is my daughter Chloe," Wesley signed and spoke. "She's been losing her hearing progressively since she was 3. We're learning this journey together." There was something in the way he said it, journey, not struggle, not challenge, but journey, that made Serene's heart shift in her chest. Here was a father who saw his daughter's hearing loss not as a tragedy, but simply as part of who she was. "Hi," Chloe signed shyly, stepping closer to Serene. "You're pretty. That man was mean. Daddy says mean people are just scared of things they don't understand." A laugh bubbled up from Serene's chest, unexpected, genuine, transforming her entire face. She signed back, her movements becoming more animated. "Thank you, sweetie. You're pretty too. I love your rainbow shirt. Is that a dinosaur on it?" Chloe's face lit up like Christmas morning. "It's a brachiosaurus. Do you know the sign for dinosaur?" She demonstrated, her small hands making the shape enthusiastically. Wesley watched them interact, something warm unfurling in his chest. He hadn't seen Chloe connect with someone this quickly since Angela.
The thought of his late wife brought a familiar ache, but it was softer now, less sharp than it used to be. 2 years had passed since that morning when a drunk driver had stolen her from them, leaving Wesley to navigate single parenthood and Chloe's progressive hearing loss alone. He'd learned sign language out of necessity at first, staying up late watching YouTube tutorials, practicing in mirrors, his hands clumsy and uncertain. But what had started as necessity had become something beautiful, a secret language between him and his daughter, a way of saying "I love you" that belonged only to them. "You signed beautifully," Serene said to Wesley, pulling him from his thoughts. "How long have you been learning?" 3 years now, since Chloe's diagnosis. It was overwhelming at first. I remember sitting in the audiologist's office, listening to them explain about progressive hearing loss, feeling like the world was ending. But then, he looked at his daughter, who was now showing Serene her coloring book. Then I realized it wasn't an ending, it was just a different beginning. Serene's eyes glistened. "Most people don't see it that way. My ex certainly didn't. He said my hearing loss made everything too complicated." That was his favorite word, complicated, as if relationships aren't supposed to require effort. "Can I tell you a secret?" Chloe signed suddenly, looking at Serene with the serious expression only a 6-year-old could manage. Serene nodded, leaning in conspiratorially. "Sometimes," Chloe signed, "when it's really noisy and I turn my hearing aids off, it's like having a superpower. I can make all the loud things quiet. And then Daddy and I talk with our hands, and it's like we have a magic language that not everyone knows." Wesley's throat tightened. Trust his daughter to find magic where others saw only limitation. "I know exactly what you mean," Serene signed back. "When I was in nursing school, after I lost most of my hearing, I thought it would end my career. But you know what? Now I work with children who are scared of hospitals, and when I show them my hearing aids, when I teach them a few signs, they realize I'm different too, and suddenly they're not so scared anymore."
You're a nurse? Chloe's hands moved excitedly. Do you help sick kids? That's like being a superhero. Serene laughed again, and Wesley realized he could watch her laugh forever. There was something about the way joy transformed her face, chasing away the shadows Brandon had tried to leave there. I almost didn't come tonight, Serene admitted, her hands stilling for a moment. This was my first attempt at dating in 2 years. I spent 3 hours getting ready, practicing what I'd say, hoping maybe this time would be different. When he was late, I told myself it was just traffic. When he was on his phone, I said maybe he was nervous. I'm very good at making excuses for people who don't deserve them. Wesley reached across the table, not touching, just placing his hand palm up on the worn wooden surface. An offer, not a demand. We all do that sometimes. We accept less than we deserve because we think it's better than being alone. But being alone isn't the worst thing. Being with someone who makes you feel alone, that's worse. Serene looked at his offered hand for a long moment, then placed hers on top of it. Her fingers were warm, steady, despite everything that had just happened. Daddy, Chloe signed with her free hand, are you making a friend? I hope so, Wesley signed back with his free hand, looking at Serene as he did. The restaurant manager approached their table, an older woman with kind eyes and silver hair. Excuse me, she said, making sure to face Serene directly so she could read her lips if needed. I saw what happened earlier. That young man's behavior was completely unacceptable. Your meals tonight, all 3 of you, are complimentary. It's the least we can do. Wesley started to protest, but the manager held up her hand. Please, that young woman shouldn't have her evening ruined by someone's ignorance. And sir, what you did, standing up for a stranger like that, we need more of that in this world.
As the manager walked away, Serene squeezed Wesley's hand. You didn't have to do that. Stand up for me, I mean. Yes, Wesley said simply. I did. Chloe is watching. She's learning how people should treat each other. What kind of father would I be if I let her think that man's behavior was acceptable? Besides, he added, a small smile playing at his lips, anyone who can't see how extraordinary you are clearly needs glasses more than you need hearing aids. Serene laughed, really laughed for the 3rd time that night, and Chloe clapped her hands in delight. Can I ask you something? Serene signed, her movements tentative. Your wife, Chloe's mother, is she... Wesley's smile dimmed slightly but didn't disappear. Angela died 2 years ago. Drunk driver, early morning run. She never came home. He paused, his hands still for a moment. She would have loved you. She was studying to become a sign language interpreter when Chloe was diagnosed, said she wanted our daughter to know she was perfect exactly as she was. She sounds wonderful, Serene signed, her eyes soft with sympathy. She was. And she would have absolutely destroyed that man with words for what he said to you. Angela had a gift for what she called educational decimation, tearing down ignorance with surgical precision. Daddy tells stories about Mommy, Chloe interjected, having followed the conversation. She's an angel now. That's why her name was Angela. She watches us from heaven and makes sure we're okay. That's right, sweetheart. Their food arrived, Wesley and Chloe's usual orders, and the manager had taken the liberty of bringing Serene the cafe's signature pasta dish. As they ate, the conversation flowed with surprising ease. Serene taught Chloe new signs, animals, colors, foods. Wesley shared stories about Chloe's school, how she was the only deaf student but how her classmates had all started learning basic signs to talk with her.
Last week, Wesley said, grinning, her entire class signed Happy Birthday to her in assembly, 22 first graders all signing in unison. Her teacher had been secretly teaching them for weeks. I may have cried, extensively. Daddy cried so much, Chloe added with 6-year-old honesty, the principal thought he was sick. Serene shared her own stories, the little boy with cochlear implants who'd been terrified of his MRI until she showed him her hearing aids and taught him the sign for brave. The teenage girl who'd attempted suicide after progressive hearing loss, who Serene had sat with for hours, showing her YouTube videos of deaf dancers, deaf doctors, deaf athletes, proving that her life wasn't over, just different. That's why I put it in my dating profile, Serene explained. My hearing loss. I wanted to be upfront, to avoid exactly what happened tonight. But I guess some people only see what they want to see. His loss, Wesley signed firmly, his complete, absolute, catastrophic loss. As the evening wore on, the café began to empty. Chloe had moved to sit next to Serene, showing her every page of her coloring book, explaining the story behind each picture. Serene listened, watched, with genuine interest, asking questions, making suggestions. "She doesn't usually warm up to people this quickly," Wesley signed to Serene, while Chloe was distracted by choosing the perfect crayon. "She's been shy since we lost her mom. But with you, it's like she recognizes something." "A kindred spirit," Serene signed back. "We're part of the same tribe, she and I, the beautiful Silence tribe." Wesley had never thought of it that way, but watching his daughter and this remarkable woman communicate with such easy joy, he understood. They shared something beyond hearing loss. They shared the knowledge that different didn't mean less than. "It's getting late," Wesley finally said, noting it was past Chloe's bedtime. The little girl was starting to yawn, her signs becoming slower.
"Of course." Serene started to stand. "Thank you for everything. For showing me that not everyone is like Brandon." "Wait," Wesley said, pulling out his phone. "Chloe and I have breakfast every Saturday morning, 9 o'clock. Magnolia Pancake House on Cherry Street. They have the best chocolate chip pancakes in Burlington, and it's quiet enough for easy conversation. Would you like to join us tomorrow?" Serene hesitated for a moment, and Wesley felt his heart skip. Had he overstepped? Was he moving too fast? "Please come," Chloe signed sleepily. "I want to show you my book about butterflies, and Daddy makes the worst jokes, but I bet you'll laugh anyway." "Hey," Wesley protested, but he was smiling. Serene looked between them. This father who'd stood up for her dignity without being asked, this little girl who saw her hearing aids as something to connect over rather than something to stare at, and felt something shift in her chest. Something that had been closed since her last relationship ended, since she decided maybe she was meant to be alone. "I love chocolate chip pancakes," she signed to Chloe. Then to Wesley, 9 o'clock? 9 o'clock, he confirmed, trying not to smile too widely as she entered her number into his phone. As they prepared to leave, Wesley helped Chloe with her rain jacket, making sure her hearing aids were protected. Serene watched them, the practiced way Wesley checked the devices without making it seem like a big deal, the way Chloe automatically tilted her head to help him. "Thank you," Serene said as they stood by the door, "for reminding me that I deserve better." "You don't need reminding. You just needed someone else to see what was already true." They parted ways in the parking lot, the rain having softened to a gentle mist. Wesley buckled Chloe into her car seat, and immediately she began signing rapidly about how nice Serene was, how pretty, how she knew all the butterfly signs. Could she please, please, please come to breakfast tomorrow? "She already said yes, sweetheart," Wesley reminded her. "But what if she forgets? What if she decides we're not cool enough?" Wesley met his daughter's eyes in the rearview mirror. "Then we'll eat chocolate chip pancakes and be grateful we met her tonight. But I don't think she'll forget." In her own car, Serene sat for a moment before starting the engine. She touched the pearl necklace at her throat, a gift from her grandmother, who'd also been deaf. "Never let anyone make you feel less than whole," her grandmother had signed to her years ago. "You're complete exactly as you are. The right person won't see your deafness as something to overcome. They'll see it as part of your story, part of what makes you who you are." She thought those were just comforting words, the kind of thing grandmother said. But tonight, watching Wesley's hands shape words in the air, watching him teach his daughter that her hearing loss was a journey rather than a tragedy, she finally understood what her grandmother meant. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly, but inside Magnolia Pancake House it was warm and bright. Wesley and Chloe had arrived 15 minutes early, Chloe insisting they get their usual table by the window. She'd brought her butterfly book and had practiced showing Serene the sign for each species. At exactly 9 o'clock, Serene walked in, shaking raindrops from her umbrella. She'd worn jeans and a soft blue sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, looking more relaxed than she had the night before. When she spotted them, her face broke into a smile that made Wesley's heart skip. "You came," Serene signed enthusiastically, bouncing in her seat. "I promised, didn't I?" Serene signed back, sliding into the booth across from them. The conversation over breakfast was easy, natural. They talked about everything and nothing. Favorite movies? Serene loved old musicals, which delighted Chloe because they're pretty even without sound. Worst cooking disasters? Wesley once set spaghetti on fire, which Serene insisted wasn't even possible, leading to a detailed explanation that had them all laughing. Childhood pets. Serene had a cat named Beethoven, because he was deaf too.
Can I tell you something? Chloe signed to Serene while Wesley was paying the check, insisting despite Serene's protests. Serene nodded, leaning in. Daddy hasn't smiled this much since Mommy went to heaven. I think you make him happy. Serene felt tears prick her eyes. He makes me happy too, she signed back. Good, Chloe signed decisively. Then you should keep having breakfast with us. One breakfast became 2, then 3, then became a standing Saturday tradition. Within a month, Serene was joining them for Wednesday dinners. Within 2 months, she was at Chloe's school play, watching the little girl perform in both spoken word and sign language, tears streaming down her face as the entire auditorium erupted in both applause and silent applause, hands waving in the air. She taught Chloe medical science, turning anatomy lessons into games. Wesley taught her construction signs, which led to all 3 of them building increasingly elaborate blanket forts in Wesley's living room. They created their own signs, family signs that belonged only to them. A sign that meant Pancake Saturday, another that meant Butterfly Friend, Chloe's name for Serene, and one that meant Our Person, that Wesley used for both Serene and Chloe. 3 months after that first night, Wesley was driving Serene home from dinner when she suddenly said, "Pull over." Concerned, Wesley immediately pulled into a parking lot. "Are you okay? Did I?" She silenced him by leaning across the console and kissing him. When they pulled apart, both breathing heavily, she signed, "I love you. I've been wanting to tell you for weeks, but I was scared that I was reading too much into things, that maybe you were just being kind." Wesley cut her off with another kiss. Then, pulling back, he signed slowly, deliberately, making sure she could see every movement clearly in the dim light of the street lamp. "I love you too. Not because you need someone to stand up for you. You don't. Not because Chloe loves you, though she does, completely. I love you because you see the world the way we do, because you've shown us that our small family isn't broken, it's just waiting for the right person to make it complete."
6 months later, on a sunny September afternoon that was nothing like that rainy night they met, Wesley proposed. He did it at the Bluebird Café, but Wesley had coordinated with the staff, and when he got down on one knee, the entire restaurant was full of their friends and family. He signed his proposal, his hand steady despite his racing heart. "You've taught me that love doesn't need words to be heard. Will you marry me?" Chloe stood beside him, holding a sign that read, "Say yes, I already picked my flower girl dress." Through happy tears, Serene signed back, "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Their wedding, held the following spring at Waterfront Park, was unlike any the guests had ever attended. Every word was both spoken and signed. Chloe, as flower girl, signed a poem about family she'd written herself. Wesley's vows made everyone cry. "Serene, you walked into our lives when we thought we were complete and showed us we were wrong. You didn't fill a void. You expanded our capacity for joy. You've taught Chloe that her differences are superpowers. You've taught me that the best conversations happen in silence. You've shown us both that family isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other every day exactly as we are." Serene's vows were equally moving. "Wesley, Chloe, you saved me on a night when I thought I wasn't enough. You showed me that the right people don't see my deafness as an obstacle to overcome, but as part of my story to embrace. You've given me a family that speaks my language, not just ASL, but the language of unconditional acceptance. I promise to love you both with my hands, my heart, and every part of who I am." During the reception, Wesley's best man revealed something that made everyone reach for tissues. After that night at the restaurant, Wesley had started a support group for single parents of children with hearing loss. What began as 5 people meeting in his living room had grown to over 50 families. They met monthly, sharing resources, teaching each other signs, creating a community where no one had to face the journey alone. Wesley could have just walked away that night, his best man said, but he stood up, and he's been standing up ever since, for his daughter, for Serene, and for every family who's ever felt alone in their journey.
Serene started volunteering at the Children's Hospital, specifically with young patients adapting to hearing loss. She would sit with them, show them her hearing aids, teach them signs, and tell them her story. The night someone tried to make her feel worthless, and how it led her to a family who knew her worth. Different doesn't mean broken, she would tell them, signing as she spoke. It just means you experience the world in your own beautiful way. One day, a 12-year-old girl who'd recently lost her hearing in an accident asked Serene, "Will anyone ever love me now?" Serene pulled out her phone and showed her a picture from their wedding. Wesley signing his vows, Chloe beaming between them, everyone in the audience using sign language. The right person won't love you despite your differences. They'll love you including them, because of them, with them. Your deafness isn't something to overcome. It's part of your story, and your story deserves love. 5 years after that night at the Bluebird Café, Chloe stood in front of her 6th grade class for a presentation about heroes. She was 11 now, confident, bright, fully fluent in ASL, and proud of who she was. She signed as she spoke clearly. Some people think being deaf means something is missing, but in my family, being deaf brought us together. It gave me a dad who learned a whole new language for me. It brought me Serene, I call her mom now, who shows me every day that our differences make us special, not less than. She clicked to the next slide, showing a picture from the recent support group picnic, over 100 people all signing together in the park. My family started because one mean man couldn't see how amazing Serene was. But my dad did. He saw her worth when she couldn't see it herself. And now we help other families see that hearing loss isn't the end of the story. It's just a different chapter. Her teacher later told Wesley and Serene that there wasn't a dry eye in the classroom. Several parents called afterward, wanting to know more about the support group, about sign language classes, about how to support their own children better. That evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Wesley, Serene, Chloe, and now 2-year-old Marcus, who was learning to sign before he could properly speak, Chloe asked a question. "Do you think Brandon ever realizes what he missed?" Wesley and Serene exchanged glances. They'd never spoken his name in their house, referring to him only as that night when they told their story. "I hope," Serene said carefully, "that he learned to see people more clearly. But honestly, sweetheart, I'm grateful for his ignorance." "Grateful?" Chloe signed, confused. "If he hadn't shown his true colors, if he'd pretended to be okay with my deafness, I might have wasted months or years with the wrong person. His cruelty led me to you and your dad. It led me to our family." Wesley reached over and took Serene's hand. "Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. That night, I thought I was just standing up for a stranger. I had no idea I was standing up for our future." The Bluebird Café still holds their table, that corner booth where a single father and his daughter changed the course of a woman's life with simple gestures of kindness and understanding. The manager, now a friend, always smiles when they come in for their anniversary dinner each year. "Table for 4? She asks now, smiling at little Marcus in his high chair, already signing cookie, hopefully. "Table for family," Wesley says, and Serene squeezes his hand. They'd built something beautiful from that night of humiliation, not despite the challenges, but because of how they'd chosen to face them together. Their home was full of laughter and silence in equal measure, conversations that happened in gestures and expressions, love that didn't need sound to be heard. Sometimes, late at night, when the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, Wesley and Serene would sit together on their porch, signing in the darkness, their hands visible only to each other in the soft glow of the porch light. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't stood up that night?" Wesley signed once. Serene thought for a moment, then signed back. "I would have gone home, cried, maybe given up on dating altogether. I would have survived, but I wouldn't have lived. Not like this." "And us?" Wesley asked. "We would have found each other," Serene signed with certainty. "Maybe not that night, maybe not at the Bluebird Café, but somehow. Love like this, it finds a way."
Their story spread through the community. The local news did a feature on their support group. The Bluebird Café put up a small plaque at their table that simply read, "Where love speaks louder than words." Parents of deaf children reached out from across the country seeking advice, comfort, community. Wesley expanded his construction company, making sure all his sites were deaf-friendly, hiring several deaf contractors, proving that communication on a construction site didn't require hearing, it required understanding. Serene became the hospital's first deaf services coordinator, creating programs that made medical care accessible for all patients, regardless of hearing ability. But at the center of it all was their family, a testament to the fact that love doesn't discriminate based on ability, that the best families are built on acceptance, and that sometimes the person who sees your worth when the world doesn't becomes your whole world. One day, Chloe asked Serene to teach her a new sign. "I want to create one that means our family," she explained, "something that's just ours." Together, they created it, a combination of different, beautiful, and together. It became their family sign, the one they used to end every conversation, every good night, every goodbye. "Perfectly unique," Serene translated it once for a curious friend. "That's us," Chloe agreed, beaming. "Perfectly unique." In the end, that rainy night at the Bluebird Café hadn't been an ending, it had been the beginning of everything. Brandon's cruelty had inadvertently created space for something genuine to bloom. His inability to see Serene's worth had led her directly to people who saw nothing but worth in her.
Wesley often thought about that moment when he stood up, when his hands moved to sign those 3 simple words, "You deserve better." He'd meant them as comfort, as basic human kindness. He had no idea he was actually signing the prologue to their love story. And Serene, who'd walked into that cafe expecting maybe a pleasant dinner and walked out with the beginning of a family, understood now what her grandmother had always known. The right people don't see your differences as flaws to overcome. They see them as part of your constellation, the unique pattern that makes you who you are. The Bluebird Café still serves the best coffee in Burlington. Couples still meet there for first dates. Hearts still break there sometimes, and hearts still mend. But in one corner booth, where a single father stood up for a stranger's dignity, where small hands signed "You're pretty" to a woman who'd just been called handicapped, where love proved that it needs no sound to be heard, in that booth, miracles happened. And they continue to happen every time someone chooses to see worth where others see weakness. Every time someone stands up for a stranger, every time someone signs or speaks or shows in any language, "You deserve better." Because everyone does. And sometimes, on rare and beautiful occasions, better is exactly what they find. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that love sees no barriers, that families come in all forms, and that the worst moments can lead to the best outcomes, please subscribe to Everbell's Stories. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they are perfectly unique, that their differences are their strengths, and that the right people will love every part of who they are. Remember, in a world where you can be anything, be the person who stands up, who signs "You deserve better," who sees worth where others don't, because that's how love stories really begin.